Joining us now, he along with Senator John Bozeman are in Arkansas this week for that Purple Heart ceremony we told you about earlier. It's to honor Privates William Long and Quentin Ezegula. Private William Long of Conway was killed and Private Quentin Ezegula of Jacksonville was wounded when a terrorist opened fire outside of a Little Rock Army recruiting center back in 2009. And since we are celebrating Military Appreciation Week this week, we thought it might be good to hear Senator Cotton's thoughts on his time in the military and a few other topics. Of course. Good morning to you, Senator Cotton. First off, let's talk about this ceremony and how important and how much you fought along with Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin as well to make this happen.
It's very important that we honor these two soldiers, Andy Long, who was killed in the attack, and Quentin Ezegula, who was injured in the attack. I was actually in Afghanistan when this happened and corresponded at the time with Private Long's father, who himself had served. We're in a worldwide battle against Islamic terrorism, and many soldiers Purple Hearts on the fronts in Afghanistan, the front in Iraq, but we have to recognize that anywhere terrorists strike is a front on this battle, and these two soldiers deeply deserved the award that they're going to receive today, and I'm proud to be a small part of it.
Your time in the military well documented through your campaigns, but talk a little bit about what people, civilians, don't necessarily know and should know about veterans or active military members.
You know, for both active duty veterans or reservists, but also veterans as well, one thing I always try to stress is the strains that it puts on their families. You know, when I went overseas to Iraq and Afghanistan, I was doing the job that I signed up to do, that I wanted to do. Same thing with my father when he went to Vietnam. My mother was here, though, in Arkansas when my father was in Vietnam or I was in Iraq and Afghanistan. Same way with husbands, wives, and kids. So I would just encourage everyone to keep in mind the sacrifices that family members make and lift them up in prayer and try to care for them, especially when their loved ones are overseas.
We want to turn away from the military a little bit now to a couple of hot-button issues that have happened in Washington recently. You signed on in support of the First Amendment Defense Act, the purpose of which to protect for-profit businesses and tax-exempt organizations who refuse to provide provide services, including same-sex marriage ceremonies, to couples. Does this fly in the face of the Supreme Court ruling?
No, but it is in part a response to the Supreme Court's ruling on same-sex marriage. I believe in traditional marriage, but you can look at, say, Roe v. Wade that was decided over 40 years ago. There are still strong disagreements about that in our society, but we respect people's opinions on both sides. I, for instance, don't think the Catholic Church should be required to violate its faith in order to also provide very important services to our communities, whether it's helping the homeless or providing for the poor or providing adoptive services. And what our legislation would do would ensure that the government doesn't discriminate against any private organization.
The Iranian nuclear talks were to have wrapped up today, but now they've been extended for another week. You've been very vocal on the administration's handling of Iran. Do you think these extra few days are going to make any kind of difference?
No, I don't think the time matters so much as the content of the deal. And unfortunately, this deal looks like it's going to pave Iran's path to a bomb, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. But it's also going to give them tens of billions of dollars at a time when they're still the world's worst state sponsor of terrorism, when they have the blood of hundreds of American soldiers on their hands, when they're still threatening to eliminate Israel. That's why it's so dangerous that they get a nuclear weapon. And it doesn't really matter whether that deal was consummated today or next week. That's why I think we should walk away from the table and put the pressure back on Iran and get a better deal.
We'll continue to follow that for sure. Finally, something that sort of flew under the radar here in Arkansas but could end up paying off big for the state fast track authority on trade agreements. You actually agreeing with President Obama on this one. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think Arkansas workers and businesses are always better off when we can compete and win in the world. If you look at the countries with whom we have a free trade agreement, we actually have a surplus in manufactured goods of about $55 billion a year. The Trans-Pacific Partnership would open up 11 new markets or expand access to markets throughout the Pacific region. Fast Track Authority doesn't give the president new authority. It simply says how Congress will review any trade agreement, not just this one in the Pacific region, but any one for the next 6 years. And I'm confident that Arkansas's farmers, ranchers, foresters, manufacturers are going to be able to compete and win in the world if we open up more markets.
And real quickly, how is fatherhood treating you?
It's great. Gabriel's been sleeping through the night over the last 2 weeks, so we're very blessed.
Well, congratulations once again. Thank you for your military service as we honor our heroes this week. Coming up next, we see